Thank you. So good morning, everyone. Everybody is talking about the digital revolution, the wild process of creative destruction, disruption of markets and industries, rapid transformation of social, cultural, and political institutions. Society as a whole in turmoil, driven to it by the sweeping technology changes that the mass production of computers and the use of internet all over the world brought forward. You know how it goes. We're all doomed. Digital revolution. The advertising-based surveillance capitalism shoves commercials down our throat at every turn. It spies on every move we make, every article we read, every video we watch, every product that we don't really need, we buy. It invades every corner of our privacy. And in the end, the companies involved want to own your digital self. They want to enslave the digital part of you to their bottom line. The digital revolution. And that's not all. Information can now be easily produced, reproduced, but also remodeled. You can make anyone say anything on tape. So information is not easily verified. And the abundance of accessible information and the amount of available interpretation of that information and the ever more visible complexity of our world play into the hands of all manipulators. Charlatans that try to con us out of liberté, égalité, fraternité. That try to trick us into fearing our fellow human beings. Digital revolution. And the advances of artificial narrow intelligence that beat chess, Go, and Jeopardy players left and right. The popularity of devices that simulate understanding and emulate servants. The giant leaps machine learning algorithms make in always shorter interval inescapably will lead to the AI singularity, so they say. And who knows, software might eat us before it eats the world. Digital revolution. So, have you ever asked yourself how we, the free software community, ended up smack in the middle of this mess? Because only a very small amount of the software that powers this digital revolution is proprietary. And only a small amount of hackers that hack that software wouldn't consider themselves in some form part of our community. So what happened? How did our collective prime directive of freedom and collaboration lead to this? Now this could be a talk about how stupid we all are, to unleash this djinn from his bottle. How we collectively opened Pandora's box and brought forward evil. How our shortcomings and carelessness drove us to the edge of this cliff. About what we did wrong to cause this digital revolution. About failure. But I'm not that kind of guy, and I don't think you're that kind of audience. So instead, Let's explore which cards we, the free software community, have been dealt in this. What can we do? What can we do other than hang our heads in shame and sigh and resign? So let's start at the beginning. No, not at that beginning. Let's start at the beginning. It all started 65 million years ago with giant reptiles that are called dinosaurs. No. Wait, just kidding. So, you know how we got here, right? You have been part of this journey. You know what you did, the choices you've taken, and the deeds you have done. All the desktops and laptops and servers you have installed, the printers you have set up for your neighbors, all the people you have to have supported software-wise throughout your days. You know the game, the free software game, in and out. The arguments you had to have on the mailing lists, all the long nights on IRC, the many pull requests submitted, the software projects you struggle to maintain. You've done it all, haven't you? The hackathons you organized, the blog posts you've written, the talks you've given at events like this. So raise your hand if you have been doing free software in some form. Raise your hand. Hey, community. We are here to stay, right? And we have been here before this digital revolution. Now, have we been overtaken by our own creation? Has free software and what people do with it outgrown its values? Is the revolution eating its children? Us? I have my doubts. Because if there is a digital revolution, and that's a big if, heck, let's go down that path and debug and look what is happening. If there is currently the revolt of the digital against their analog oppressors, then people would gain freedom. There would be less despotism, less brutality, less injustice, especially in the digital realm. Because the digital realm, the internet, so to say, is the root of this revolution, right? Instead, we clearly see this. Tyranny gets a digital update. Can you call this a revolution? Revolution is either against, like, anti-dictatorial, or for, like, pro-digital. But it has never love for what was. Revolution is the attempt to change the fabric of everyday life for the better, for the population. It means replacing one complex social, cultural, economic system with another equally complex but improved system. Is that what is happening? I don't know. What I do know is that there is a change going on in the characteristics of the population over successive generations. Evolution instead of revolution. A matter of one letter. And evolution has no plans, no tendency to produce progress. It does not strive to get somewhere. Things happen simply, cease to happen. Other things start to happen. And evolution is also not necessarily producing complexity. Half of this world's biomass are unicellular organisms. Realistically, we humans are a rather bizarre experiment on a planet ruled by bacteria. And the effects of evolution on the individual and the everyday fabric of life are rather small. They are manageable. So I believe digital evolution, not revolution, is what is currently happening. And that is a nice thing because, thank you. And that is a nice thing because evolution is also what free software is all about. It's about survival of the clever, the studious, the busy bees, the creative, the hard-headed, and the collaborators. But also about raising diversity through coexistence. Free software inspires harmony between projects that have very similar traits, like Vim and Emacs, GNOME and KDE, GIMP and Inkscape. Free software also encourages coexistence of projects that are wildly different but of the same origin, like Debian but Ubuntu, MySQL but MariaDB, OwnCloud but Nextcloud. And just like evolution, free software experiments all the time. Many experiments find their niche to exist. Some go even global, like Linux, that has the largest installation base of all operating systems on this planet, on any device. Or WordPress, that is powering a staggering 30% of the top 10 million websites. Or Wikipedia, the 5th most popular site globally. But it's also true that more than 90% of all free software projects are not seeing any development beyond their first year of existence. Just like 99% of all species that ever lived on this earth are extinct. Free software is a deeply evolutionary process. And that brings us to the hand we, the free software community, have been dealt in this new era. We are at the center of what is currently happening because our way is slowly but steadily taking over. Digital evolution. And if we remember our collective past and the people who have coded before us, and if we embrace the present and the people who we do free software with in this room right now, and if we are accepting that we are building a better future for all the people that come after us, just by doing free software with our friends, we will find that digital evolution is stronger than all the disruptors, all the move fast and break things minded radical revolutionists. Because it takes a strong and healthy community of people to put the freedom for everyone to redistribute exact copies and modified versions before the exchange of any money. This was so alien to the software industry that they laughed at us for 30 years. Not anymore. Not anymore, my friends. But how are we going to take this freedom into the digital age further? To other areas of society where this freedom is laughable right now. The entertainment industry is laughing at our ways. The multi-billion-dollar social networks are laughing at us. The global health industry complex is laughing. Despite all of them using or producing free software somehow. For how long will they laugh? Or to be more precise, what software are we going to write to support exactly this freedom to share and to remix? We already have hacked and are still hacking so much code to support, to redistribute exact and modified version of software. What are we going to do for other things? Software like Dealer, a free software school management and learning platform that includes a marketplace for learning material with licenses that let educators use, remix, and share them. So making it a collaborative to educate digitally. Or Jupyter, free software that makes it possible to easily create interactive, shareable, and remixable learning material used by the massive online courses that spread knowledge to all the corners of the world. Digital evolution is passing on this trait of putting sharing and remixing first. So where else will we take it? And it also takes strength to put your thoughts, your heart, your creation out there for everyone to see, often even in an incomplete or rough form. It takes strength to release early, release often. And it equally takes strength to approach another person and propose to them your ideas, your problems and hopes, or maybe even asking for something like help, information, or even guidance. It takes tremendous strength to put the freedom to study and understand what we produce before the competitive edge you would gain by denying access to this knowledge. But collaboration is so beautiful because it is so hard to do. It's harder to manufacture than competition because competition is simply the absence of collaboration. People are made by collaboration. Your parents have collaborated to create you. And so is the free software community. But how are we going to take this freedom that has liberated us from working against each other further in this digital age? And again, as we are all hackers in some form, what software are we going to write to support exactly this freedom to collaborate? Again, not this. Fat fingers. Here we go. Software like Witness.org, which helps video to realize its full potential as human rights tool. Software that helps people to collaborate, to stand up to their real-world oppressors. Or software supporting initiatives like the Do-It-Yourself Kit, a Creative Commons compendium of practical tools and processes that support people in realizing social innovation. Digital evolution is about passing on this trait of collaboration. Where to next? And you need to be strong to make sense of a thing through your own perception and not from someone else's. Someone that thinks he understood and precludes that there could be any other way that you can look at it. It's very convenient to consume. It takes tremendous strength to tinker instead. And we, the free software community, do not shy away from fiddling with things. On the contrary, we have invented the wheel a billion times. We have. Because we do not follow the dictate of efficiency. We do things that are uneconomical. Why? To understand why things are as they are. To decipher their nature for ourselves. And to sharpen our capability to understand. But how are we going to pass this tinker trait on? What software are we going to write to enable people to dissect, understand, break, and repair other things than software? And maybe it doesn't even have to be software that we write. Like the awesome Lulzbot people who have produced hardware based on freely licensed designs, specifications, and documentation. So the machine can be understood, modified, shared. Of course, with the machine, you can also do awesome 3D prints and share your 3D prints designs. Or things like OpenKnit. A digital fabrication tool that affords everyone the opportunity to create clothing from digital files. Going from the raw material, the yarn, straight to its end use, the sweater, for example. The tinker trade is passed on to the physical world by the digital evolution. What are you going to hack to support this? And yes, it also takes strength to be willing to abide imperfection. Bugs, unpolished interfaces, Spartan documentation, missing features, insufficient support. It takes strong people to be enthusiastic users and contributors despite all of it. And that is because imperfection lets us relate to free software. As we are all imperfect and know this deep in our heart. It's not turning us off. It's the fuel for our contribution. It's turning us on. We even advertise our imperfections. We say we have this list of bugs. And we even go to other human beings and tell them their imperfections straight to their face. Like, here you have a problem. And because we are strong like that, we don't have to deceive. We don't have to hide. We don't have to disguise. We don't lie. To the people who consume our products, we are salesmen that make the only good deal that there is. One where both sides are honest and trustworthy with each other, and the deal where both sides win. Free software is not pulling people over the table. And that trait is also passed on by the digital evolution. Now, maybe this is the time in the light of that to talk about the things that are not so awesome about free software. So, for instance, if you are struggling economically, you are, for the most part, excluded to work on free software. And that, in turn, leads to sometimes whole parts of the society being excluded, which makes us only proposing solutions to problems that people have with too much time on their hands. We need to change this. And one particular case is gender diversity. A relative recent study from 2016 for the EU found that only 1.5% of open source contributions are coming from female developers. In the light of that, the amount of women that work in the tech industry is 25%. Now, that number is shitty in itself and needs to change, but if the digital industry has a huge diversity problem, what do we have done with 1.5%? And wait. Sorry. And that is despite all the awesome things you heard about yesterday in the diversity talks, despite all the people who put in so much work to change this. And then there's another relatively new thing. It's about psychological health of maintainers of free software. Because with the ever-increasing demand of free software, there's an ever-increasing demand on the people who produce it. And if you fail to collaborate, then it often has very bad effects on the psychological health of maintainers. So these are things that are wrong, but these are also things that are worked on currently by us. So we have things like stipends, like Outreachy, Rails Girls, or Google Education Grants. We also have diversity support groups, as we heard yesterday. We have maintainer support groups where people support each other in solving their problems, maintaining free software. There are funding apps where people can actually make a living out of their individual free software works. Or we have a huge new base of code of conducts where we tell people how to behave in our projects. So these are the cards that we have been dealt as community. So instead of keeping everything to ourselves, you need to share. Instead of competing with the people around you, you need to collaborate. And instead of mindlessly consuming, you need to tinker. And you need to be transparent about it. So where can you do this? Now that we know we should do it, where can you do it? How can we get our hands dirty? Oh, sorry. Now, your imagination is your limit. How about a zookeeper community, where you write software that supports zookeepers to share their recipes for animal health and training and visitor education, while in the same time producing open data for behavioral studies or population studies or whatever. Too far out for you? So there's another part where you can also do this, and that is software. And if you're new to this, if you haven't had the chance to work with our community yet, I just asked who made free software, and there was somebody next to you who had their hand up. After this talk, go to them, talk to them, ask what they are doing, how they are doing it, what do they like about it, what do they hate about it. Approach the people, then the technology problem. So where can we do this? And I said software. So if that is more in your area than zookeepers, you can do software things. You can apply all these traits that I mentioned to other things in software, like design and UX or data. And there even is, I just recently discovered, open data portal for Croatia or services. So we don't rely on all the services that are currently in the web. Or project management, where people share how they handle their project. Or even research. People work collaboratively and share their research methods and data. Or things like computing, where people share their computing power. Now, what I want you to take away from this, what I want you to think about afterwards, is you need to go out and pass these traits that we already have, that are our strengths, you need to pass them on. You need to do digital evolution yourself. And then there's one thing I would like to ask you, is talk to me. As all of you, I need to have my views, my thinking, and my ideas challenged. So we need to talk about these things that we have yesterday with the diversity. And that's it. Let's make digital evolution instead of digital revolution. Thank you.